Hello. Now, Star Trek Into Darkness. I saw it 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago from tomorrow, or today probably when this gets out. 2 weeks ago on its opening weekend actually. And Star Trek Into Darkness is the sequel to the Star Trek movie which came out in 2009, directed by J.J. Abrams, so is this one. And I suppose that Star Trek is really the new geeky thing to get into. I know a lot of people who are really into Star Trek. That's their nerdy thing. It's definitely not a new thing, but I mean, I suppose it's old. It's like 60s old, but I suppose it's new because of the whole Hollywood stylized version of it coming out, and it's kind of made a return. It's overblown, making a comeback. And as I said, sequel to the 2009 Star Trek movie, which I saw when it came out. Not instantly, I really wasn't looking forward to it. I saw it just when it was finishing its run in the cinemas practically. And I thought it was decent. It was very decent. I wasn't really well versed into the whole sci-fi universe kind of thing. I wasn't really into sci-fi back then, and so thus it got a bit confusing for me at times. I'm not gonna lie, but it was decent for the most part. I really liked it. Action scenes were all cool and everything. So, needless to say, I was actually pumped for Star Trek Into Darkness. I thought the trailers were really good. I thought over these 4 years, Star Trek would have, that kind of thing would become more of my thing. And, if that's making any sense. And yeah, it just looks really, really good. Especially all the cast involved. I love J.J. Abrams as a director. Gotta love Benedict Cumberbatch as well. So basically what this one's about is, it's pretty simple how I'm going to explain it. It's Captain James T. Kirk. He's now, after the events of Star Trek 1, he's been left as the captain for the starship. And it's also with his relationship with his best friend Spock, pretty much. And then, I don't want to say terrorist attacks, but I suppose I'm going to have to, because that's really what it is, basically. Terrorist attacks by this one person called John Harris, I think that's his name. Because I don't want to say terrorist attacks because it's happening in outer space, but that's basically what's been happening. And also a few events starting to happen on Earth until the main climax, which is basically all on Earth. We're starting to really overtake and overpower, and Earth's a really big threat to... Yeah, it's a really big threat to try to take over Earth rather than just other planets. Yeah, that was my poor attempt at, yeah. But one main thing I really loved about Star Trek Into Darkness is J.J. Abrams. He's such a good director, and he really shows off this. He's really good director. I know people make jokes about the lens flares in his videos, over usage of those, and yeah, I can see where you're coming from. It's not cool to use it all the time, but just, he's got a way with his camera angles and how he presents the film, not just visually though as well. He almost uses it to his advantage, to use these camera angles and stuff to show more of the story and make it flow better, and it kind of gives the story a better structure, if you can actually understand what I'm saying with that. And when he directs action, it's really good. the action, it's overblown. Well, I don't want to say overblown because that sounds like a negative thing because I'm using the word over. But it's overblown and big and fantastic and amazing. And I saw this movie in IMAX. And basically, all the outdoor sequences take up the whole IMAX screen, as in all the indoor ones don't. And which I guess does become a bit distracting, seeing as all the action sequences will go from outdoor to indoor, like big cuts like that, like with different characters. Yeah, that can get a bit distracting, but it just looks so good on the mighty IMAX screen. All the, like, the volcanic scene, and just the way how the camera swoops, and the view it gives you, and it just looks so fantastic, especially on that huge IMAX screen. Now, I don't go to IMAX often because A, it's expensive, and B, I live in Wellington, IMAX is over in Auckland. But that's all I can say for that. And the character development here is actually really impressive, especially for a sequel, because every character has their moment to shine, and the thing with sequels is usually they will just leave the characters off where they were. They'll just dump them there with a new situation, act like you know these characters already, just, yeah, come on, meh. You know, these are characters we don't need to give you any introduction. And this is how this movie actually starts off, really, which is a bit like, yeah, not surprising, but not for the entire thing, actually. Every character has their moment to shine, no matter how big or small their parts are. Even if you haven't seen the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek film, you'll still be able to care about the characters, because just the way they're set up in every situation that they're in, you can really feel for them. And it was just surprising how they managed to do this. You really wouldn't have needed any prior knowledge to the first one. These are all characters which have troubles at times, and just the way they structured these characters and set them up for this particular movie was impressive. And I don't think I've really seen this before in a sequel. It was actually really well done. And the acting from everyone, yeah, the acting's really impressive, no surprises there. I really like Chris Pine. He gives a very strong lead performance. Benedict Cumberbatch as John Harris basically steals the show. What can I say? He stole the show. He carries basically the entire movie on his shoulders, and he doesn't really come in until like an hour in, something like that. Yes, great performance. Zoe Saldana, not the best, but, you know, she does. And even like Nick Frost, I mean, he's not in the movie much, but that's basically proof of my point beforehand. He really shows when he's given his moment to shine. But unfortunately, and also Zachary Quinto, how could I forget that? Zachary Quinto is Spock. He is Spock. I can't imagine any other actor playing that role, apart from Zachary Quinto. He's the character. Like, you wouldn't care about the character nearly half as much if it wasn't for Zachary Quinto. It's just, he's perfect for that role. Yeah. But now time to get into some of the negatives. My main problem, it really feels generic at times. It just starts to play itself far too safe. Now, for an action blockbuster, it was really, really well done. really well structured, set out, stylized, everything for those first 2/3. Then that last third happens and everything, frame by frame, all the events that happen, were just so generic, and I've seen it all before, and it just played it far too safe. I could see where it was going, shot for bloody shot, and it just wasn't that impressive. I thought they played it far too safe. They could have made this much more original. It's Star Trek. You've got to make it much more smart and original. For this, it just played it far too safe. I'd seen it in so many, just time after time, in big scale action blockbusters. And if you just look at year by year, when it comes to the Hollywood action blockbusters which come out in the winter time, it's the ones which are a little less predictable or just don't follow the same pattern all the time, which become the better ones. This one, just in the last third, in the climax, it's just so... It's just so... I've seen it all before. And I just felt... It was disappointing. I was just sitting there thinking, I've seen this all before. Why am I not surprised? Yeah. And also, at 2 hours and 15 minutes, that's how long this movie is. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Far too long. I went in to this movie, walking into that IMAX cinema, pumped, thinking that this movie would be a little more complex, but not too complex. I didn't want it to be as complex as the first Star Trek. I just got confused at times. Thinking that it's like intricate layers of story would justify that 2 hours and 15 minute running time. Unfortunately, it doesn't. This movie has a pretty simple plot, and it which isn't really a gripe, not for me at least, and it could have been much shorter. I felt at times it was being long for the sake of being long. Because why is it these days that movies are so much longer? All the big, high-scale Hollywood blockbusters coming out are always over 2 hours. Why on earth does that have to be the case? It always is. Every time it's over 2 hours. This one, 2 hours 15 minutes. It really does not need to be that long. It could have been an hour and 45 minutes to an hour and 50 minutes. It just felt I felt it was being long for the sake of being long. With the substance it had, a long running time was not justified. And I know it's not as long as some of the other movies coming out today, but it still... It was long, and movies need to be shorter nowadays. So, one sentence review. Star Trek Into Darkness is a great action blockbuster and an awesome ride, but unfortunately feels a bit generic, and at 2.25 hours overstays its welcome. 4 stars from me. So, look forward to more from me in the future. Skyfall review, Hobbit review, Iron Man 3 review. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm Thomas, and that's a review.